Bankruptcy. A word that echoes like a lament, often associated with disastrous decisions, unchecked ambition, or pure irresponsibility. But what about those who work hard, pay their bills on time, and still watch the ground disappear beneath their feet? Good people, with noble intentions, find themselves entangled in an invisible web of daily habits that silently erode their financial security. It's not a sudden disaster, but a slow erosion. We are here to reveal 5 of these treacherous habits that, without you even realizing it, are leading you to ruin. Sarah, a talented 38-year-old graphic designer in Portland, Oregon, had always prided herself on her independence. She worked hard, loved her dog, and cherished the freedom to buy what she wanted, when she wanted. However, over the past 2 years, a subtle shadow began to loom over her financial life. Bank notifications, once ignored, became a source of growing anxiety. She found herself in a tangle of minimum credit card payments, student loans that seemed to never shrink, and a stagnant savings account. That daily coffee, the new outfit she needed for an event, and dinners with friends, once harmless, now felt increasingly heavy. Sarah's story is not unique. Many Americans, like her, find themselves in a financial gray area, where the lack of control isn't blatant, but insidious. According to a 2023 Federal Reserve survey, 40% of American adults could not cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money or selling something. This is a clear sign that the margin for error is minimal. Warning signs rarely arrive like a bolt of lightning. They are whispers, small lifestyle adjustments that become permanent. One of the first and most treacherous signs is the continuous use of credit for essential expenses. Sarah began paying for gas and even some grocery purchases with her credit card, promising herself she would pay it all off next month. This practice, though common, masks a lack of cash flow and accumulates debt. Data from the American Bankers Association indicates that the average credit card debt per household in the U.S. has reached record levels, exceeding $6,500 in 2024. Paying only the minimum on credit cards is another serious symptom. This prolongs debt repayment for years, resulting in exorbitant interest that devours a large portion of one's income. Another red flag is the absence of an emergency fund. The COVID-19 pandemic brutally exposed this vulnerability. Millions lost their jobs or had their incomes reduced, and without savings to cover a few months of expenses, the cascade toward bankruptcy was swift and devastating. For Sarah, the lack of a financial cushion meant that any unexpected event, a car repair, an unforeseen vet visit, forced her to dive deeper into her credit lines. The constant feeling of playing catch-up is also an indicator. Sarah realized that no matter how hard she worked, money seemed to slip through her fingers. She was always a step behind on bills, never able to breathe financially. This rat race can lead to chronic stress, affecting mental and physical health, and decreasing the ability to make sound financial decisions. Furthermore, a lack of awareness about one's own spending is an abyss. Sarah, like many, had a vague idea of where her money went, but never sat down to create a detailed budget. She would be surprised to see how much she spent on subscriptions she barely used, on food deliveries, and on impulse online purchases. A Rowe Price study revealed that only 49% of American adults track their spending regularly. Not knowing where your money is going is like trying to fill a leaky bucket without realizing the leaks. For Sarah, the turning point came when she found herself unable to pay her rent on time. The shame and despair hit her hard. This was her final warning. She realized she needed a clear method to identify and reverse the trajectory. The crucial lesson is that bankruptcy is rarely a sudden event, it's the culmination of small, neglected decisions. The first step toward recovery is recognizing these warning signs, no matter how subtle they seem, and facing the reality of your daily financial habits. Only by confronting these seemingly harmless behaviors, which silently undermine stability, can one begin to rebuild a solid financial future. Sarah's anguish at seeing her bank account empty and debts piling up drove her to seek answers. She wasn't alone, millions of Americans, good payers and hard workers, find themselves in the same trap. Bankruptcy, for most of them, isn't the result of risky bets or unbridled extravagance, but rather an accumulation of more subtle and, often, painful factors. According to data from the American Bankruptcy Institute, the main causes of personal bankruptcy in the U.S. are rarely a single event but rather a confluence of interconnected challenges. One of the largest and most impactful causes is medical debt. For a country without a universal healthcare system, a serious illness or an unexpected accident can decimate a family's finances in a matter of months. John, a 52-year-old high school teacher in Kansas, had his life turned upside down when his wife suddenly fell ill, requiring emergency surgery and a long recovery period. Even with insurance, the medical bills kept coming. Co-pays, deductibles, and uncovered expenses added up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. John used his savings, his retirement funds, and took out high-interest loans. In 2023, a Kaiser Family Foundation study revealed that 100 million people in the U.S. have medical debt, and 12% of them owe more than $10,000. This is a silent trap that catches even the most prudent. Another predominant cause is job loss or a significant reduction in income. In a volatile job market, job security can be illusory. Maria, a 45-year-old lab technician in Ohio, was caught off guard when her company underwent restructuring and she was laid off. Despite years of dedication, the market for her specialty was saturated. Without a constant flow of income, and without a robust emergency fund, bills quickly piled up. Rent, utility bills, food, everything became a burden. The Bureau of Labor Statistics indicates that, in 2024, the unemployment rate in the U.S. fluctuated, but the reality is that unexpected income loss continues to be a significant trigger for bankruptcy, especially for those living paycheck to paycheck. Poor credit card management and other consumer debts are the third most common cause. This is where Sarah fit perfectly. The ease of access to credit and the temptation of impulsive purchases can lead to a vicious cycle of debt. The average American consumer has multiple credit cards and often doesn't fully understand compound interest. An Experian study showed that average credit card debt has grown consistently, and many users only pay the minimum, indefinitely prolonging the debt and making it unmanageable. The false sense of security that credit offers can be devastating in the long run. Furthermore, overwhelming student loans represent an increasing burden. Michael, a young graduate in New York, left college with a degree and over $80,000 in student loan debt. The monthly payments were high, and his first job barely covered his basic expenses. Student debt in the U.S. exceeds $1.7 trillion, affecting millions of young adults and delaying important financial milestones, such as buying a home or starting a family. For many, this debt becomes an uncontrollable snowball. Finally, the absence of financial planning and financial education underlies many of these causes. Most people don't receive financial education in school and learn about money through trial and error. The lack of a budget, the inability to create and follow a savings plan, and a misunderstanding of basic investment concepts make people vulnerable. The stories of Sarah, John, Maria, and Michael are examples of how a lack of knowledge or negligence with small daily decisions can lead to major catastrophes. Experts are unanimous: understanding where money goes, having an emergency fund, avoiding high-cost debt, and planning for the future are the most effective defenses against financial collapse. Bankruptcy, in its essence, is the loss of control over one's financial narrative, but the good news is that this control can be regained. The reality hit Sarah hard when she realized the extent of her debts and how her daily habits had led her to the brink. However, despair turned into determination. She knew she needed a concrete action plan, a roadmap to get out of the hole she was in. Her journey to recovery, like that of many others, wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. The good news is that there are proven strategies that, when applied with discipline, can turn around anyone's delicate financial situation. One of the first and most effective strategies is creating a strict and realistic budget. For Sarah, this meant facing the truth about every penny that came in and went out of her account. She used a financial management app to categorize her expenses and was shocked to see the amount spent on superfluous items, like daily coffees and impulsive online purchases. Financial experts suggest that a budget should be more than a list of numbers, it's a reflection of your priorities. The 50/30/20 rule, popularized by Elizabeth Warren, suggests allocating 50% of income to needs, housing, food, transportation, 30% to wants, entertainment, leisure, and 20% to savings and debt repayment. Sarah adapted this rule, prioritizing debt repayment above all else at the beginning of her recovery. Next, the focus should be on paying off high-interest debt. There are two main approaches, the snowball method and the avalanche method. The snowball method, preferred by many for its psychological motivation, involves paying off the smallest debt first while making minimum payments on the others. Once the smallest is paid off, the amount that was being paid on it is then applied to the next smallest debt, creating a snowball effect. The avalanche method, on the other hand, prioritizes paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first, which mathematically saves more money in interest over time. Sarah opted for the snowball method, as she needed the motivation of small victories to stay on track. She cut non-essential expenses and directed as much as possible toward her credit card debts, which had the highest interest rates. Debt negotiation is another powerful tool. Many financial institutions are willing to negotiate payment plans or even reduce the amount of debt, especially if the debtor demonstrates proactivity. Sarah contacted her credit card providers and, to her surprise, was able to negotiate lower interest rates and a more accessible payment plan for one of her oldest debts. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, encourages consumers to contact their creditors to discuss options before the situation becomes unsustainable. Building an emergency fund is crucial, even if it starts small. The idea of having a financial cushion for unexpected events, a broken car, a medical emergency, a job loss, is vital to avoid falling back into the debt cycle. Sarah started with the modest goal of saving $1,000, an amount that, according to experts, can cover most small emergencies. She automated weekly transfers of a small amount to a separate account, ensuring that saving became a habit. Finally, seeking extra income can significantly accelerate the recovery process. Whether through freelance work, selling and used items, or even a temporary second job, any additional source of income can be directed towards debt repayment or the emergency fund. Sarah, with her design skills, began taking on small projects on online platforms on weekends, supplementing her main income. This extra money was essential for paying off her debts faster than expected. Financial recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires patience, discipline, and, above all, an unwavering commitment to changing habits. Sarah learned that true power lies in taking control of her finances, transforming shame and despair into a clear and actionable plan. By applying these strategies, she not only began to see her debts decrease but also regained her peace of mind and a sense of autonomy over her life. With each debt paid and every dollar saved, Sarah felt a new kind of freedom. But more than the figures in her account, what truly changed was her mindset. She realized that recovery wasn't just about cutting expenses or paying off debts, it was about understanding money in a way she never had before. Financial education, which once seemed like a dry and distant topic, proved to be the most powerful tool to avoid the mistakes that led her to the brink of bankruptcy. After all, prevention is always the best long-term financial health strategy. One of the most common and insidious mistakes is the lack of a clear budget. Many operate with a vague notion of their finances, without knowing exactly how much comes in and, crucially, where the money is going. A 2023 study by Ramsey Solutions showed that only 32% of Americans regularly maintain a budget. Without this basic tool, it's impossible to identify financial leaks, prioritize spending, or plan for the future. Sarah, for example, had no idea how much she spent on food delivery apps until she started logging every transaction. The lesson is that money, when not directed, simply disappears. Another fundamental mistake is the inability to differentiate between needs and wants. Modern consumer society constantly bombards us with the idea that we need more and more to be happy. This impulse leads to impulse purchases and a lifestyle that exceeds one's means. Sarah used to justify every new clothing purchase as a need for her job or social life, when, in reality, many were just desires in disguise. Educating oneself to question every expense and understand its true value is crucial. Neglecting to build an emergency fund is a fatal stumble for many. Life is unpredictable, and financial emergencies can arise at any time: an unexpected layoff, a health issue, an urgent home or car repair. Without a safety net, these events force people to resort to credit cards or high-interest loans, starting or worsening a debt cycle. Ideally, according to experts, one should have 3 to 6 months of essential expenses saved. Sarah started with a small goal, but with every dollar saved, she felt more secure and less vulnerable. Additionally, the improper use of credit is a common trap. Credit cards, while convenient, can become instruments of ruin if used to finance an unsustainable lifestyle. Many accumulate debt on multiple cards, paying only the minimum, without realizing that compound interest turns small purchases into gigantic sums. The lack of understanding about how credit works, from interest rates to the impact on credit scores, is a costly mistake. Sarah learned to use her credit card as a convenience tool, paying the full statement balance every month to avoid interest. Finally, the absence of a long-term plan for one's financial future. Many live in the present, without thinking about retirement, children's education, or other major financial goals. The lack of clear financial goals leads to drifting, and money is spent without purpose. Financial education teaches the importance of setting goals, creating a plan to achieve them, and reviewing that plan periodically. Sarah began to think about her retirement and how she could invest small amounts to secure a more comfortable future. Financial education empowers people to make informed decisions and avoid the common traps that lead to bankruptcy. It's not about deprivation, but about freedom, the freedom to control your own financial destiny. Sarah now not only manages her finances wisely but also shares her lessons with friends and family, showing that the journey to financial stability begins with knowledge and the courage to change. Once Sarah managed to stabilize her finances, paying off high-interest debts and building her emergency fund, she realized there was an essential next step: not just avoiding bankruptcy, but building a solid financial foundation for the future. This meant exploring new avenues of income and, intelligently, making her money work for her. The path to financial independence rarely stops at a single salary, it expands with the diversification of income sources and well-planned investments. The first strategy, and often the most accessible, is generating extra income. In 2024, the gig economy offers countless opportunities to supplement one's budget. For Sarah, with her graphic design expertise, taking on freelance projects on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr became an effective way to use her skills outside of business hours. This additional money not only accelerated the repayment of her last debts but also helped her supercharge her emergency fund. Others can explore delivery or ride-sharing services, apps like Uber, Lyft, or DoorDash. Selling products online. Creating and selling crafts, reselling second-hand items on platforms like eBay or Facebook Marketplace. Tutoring or consulting. If you have knowledge in a specific area, you can teach or offer consulting. Renting out assets, renting a spare room, Airbnb, your car, Turo, or equipment. The crucial part is finding something that fits your routine and utilizes your existing skills or a hobby. Pew Research Center data from 2023 shows that 16% of American adults have already earned money through the gig economy, and many others consider it a viable option. With the financial surplus and the emergency fund established, the next step is smart investing. For many, the word investment conjures images of Wall Street and high risks, but the reality is that investing can be accessible and safe, as long as it's done with knowledge. Sarah, initially intimidated, began to educate herself on the basics. The starting point for most should be the employer-sponsored retirement plan, such as a 401k or 403b, especially if there's an employer match. This is, essentially, free money. 2023 statistics from the Employee Benefit Research Institute, EBRI, indicate that many workers don't fully take advantage of this benefit, losing thousands of dollars in matching contributions over their careers. Beyond that, investing in index funds or ETFs, exchange-traded funds, is a recommended strategy for beginners. These funds offer instant diversification, investing in a broad basket of stocks or bonds, which reduces risk compared to investing in individual stocks. They tend to have lower fees and don't require the investor to be a market expert. Sarah started investing a small monthly amount in an ETF that mirrored the performance of the S&P 500, automating transfers to ensure consistency. Understanding diversification is vital. "Don't put all your eggs in one basket" is a cliché for a reason. Spreading your investments across different types of assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, and different sectors or geographical regions helps mitigate risks. If one sector or market performs poorly, others might be doing well, protecting your capital. Finally, periodic review of investments and financial planning is crucial. The market and personal life change. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. Sarah schedules a quarterly review of her finances to adjust her budget, rebalance her investments, and reevaluate her goals. This practice keeps her in control and allows her to adapt to new opportunities or challenges. Sarah's journey from a debt-ridden designer to a conscious investor demonstrates that bankruptcy can not only be avoided but transformed into a springboard for prosperity. Extra income and smart investments are the tools that turn financial survival into wealth building, ensuring a future of security and abundance. Sarah's financial transformation was not an endpoint, but rather a new beginning. She had climbed out of the debt hole and started investing, but she knew that financial security wasn't a destination, but a continuous journey. Staying financially secure in the long term requires constant vigilance, adaptation, and the internalization of habits that protect and grow money. For her, the goal became not just to avoid bankruptcy, but to build a legacy of stability and prosperity. One of the pillars for a sustainable financial future is maintaining a flexible and regularly reviewed budget. Life changes, and so do finances. Sarah's budget, which was once a tool for cutting and containment, became a guide for growth. She reviewed it monthly, adjusting it to the new realities of her income, which now included her extra work, and her evolving goals. Ignoring the budget after reaching a level of comfort is a common mistake that can lead to a gradual and silent decline, as evidenced by the fact that many lose control when they think they are safe. Secondly, continuing financial education is vital. The financial world is constantly evolving, with new investment opportunities, technologies, and challenges. Sarah started reading personal finance books, following podcasts, and attending webinars. She learned about different types of investments, tax optimization, and estate planning strategies. Financial ignorance is a continuous risk, knowledge is the best defense. Staying updated on economic trends and best money management practices allows one to make proactive, rather than reactive, decisions. Diversifying investments and income streams becomes even more crucial as wealth grows. While before the focus was on extra income to pay off debts, now Sarah sought to diversify her investments across different asset classes, stocks, bonds, perhaps small-scale real estate, and to build multiple passive income streams, like stock dividends or rental income. This not only increases growth potential but also protects against the volatility of any single market or the loss of a single income source. A well-diversified portfolio can better withstand economic shocks. Another fundamental aspect is planning for major life milestones. Marriage, buying a home, children's education, retirement, each of these events requires careful and often early financial planning. Sarah began talking to a financial planner to set long-term goals and understand the tax and investment implications of each. Not waiting for these events to occur to start planning minimizes financial stress and maximizes the chances of success. For example, starting to save for retirement early, even with small amounts, allows the power of compound interest to work in your favor for longer, resulting in a significantly larger amount in the future. Finally, financial resilience and a long-term mindset are attributes Sarah cultivated. The path to financial security is not linear, there will be ups and downs. Unforeseen events can happen, and the market can fluctuate. The ability to remain calm, adapt, and stay the course in the face of adversity is what distinguishes financial success from failure. Sarah learned not to react to every market news story, but to focus on her long-term goals and the strength of her good financial habits. Sarah is no longer defined by her past debts. She has become an example of how good people, armed with the right knowledge and discipline, can not only escape the trap of bankruptcy but also forge a path to a secure and prosperous financial future. Her legacy is not just about money saved or invested, but about a life lived with purpose and financial freedom.